Okay, in the last video, our task was to ensure that the beginning balance in our cash book matched the beginning balance on our bank statement. And if we look back at our information, we can see that we started off from our cash book with the balance brought down, the $14.95. And if we review the amounts in our bank statement, we were able to identify what we were going to use in our opening reconciliation. And all of that led to us being able to match the two amounts. So we worked out that was 1612. Now we can ignore those amounts that we used in our opening rec and use the other information we identified in our bank statement to update our cash book. So we have an adjustment, and then we have some other stuff which we have CB next to help us remember what amounts we're going to use in our updated cash book so we can get started. One of the first things that we need to remember is when we're completing our updated cash book, we have to start with the balance carried down from the cash book. Okay, the balance carried down would be the balance brought down in your updated cash book. Remember, carried down and brought down are two different things. So once we're doing the updated cash book, you must write balance brought down and not balance carried down. Okay. The next thing to note is that the balance carried down on the debit side of the cash book would be reported as the balance brought down on the credit side of your updated cash book. And vice versa, if the balance carried down was on the credit side of your original cash book, when you're completing the updated cash book, it would be the balance brought down on the debit side. So that's the difference right there. We would always use the balance brought down, whichever side that goes on. That is what we would start off with in our bank reconciliation. But when we're doing the updated cash book, we have to put it wherever whichever side the balance carried down is on. When we do the updated cash book, we would put it on the opposite side as the balance brought down. So let's see what that looks like. So we have here in the cash book for Chastity, balance carried down of 184 on the debit side of the cash book. I already have the T account drawn up, so we can get going with writing it up. So here we have Chastity. This is the name of the company. And this is our updated cash book. And let's put in our details. We would have date, details, and the amount. We do the same thing on the debit side. Date, details, amount. Right? Now, another thing to note when we are completing the updated cash book is that there's no need to write a date next to every transaction we put in here. Because this is happening at month end, all we need to do is write the date once, the month end date that is once, and we can then add all the other transactions accordingly. So we have in our date, and we already said that the balance brought down would be on our credit side. Just let me double check that number, 184. So that's our first entry, the balance brought down. Let's review the statement and see what else we can put in our updated cash book. So we can start off with this adjustment for check 719. Our note told us, let's review the note one more time, that actually, no, before we start off with the check, let's just look at the first note we have here. We have to remember this stale dated check. Remember that this check would have become stale dated from November 6th, right? Because it was written on May 6th. and our Sims, and that person never cashed the check, so it never cleared the account. So this is November 30th that we're updating. So if it was never cashed and it's identified as stale dated, we have to update our cash book by adding the money back into the account because it never left the account. So let's start there with, from our notes, that $42 has to come back in to the cash book. So let's just put that as our first item. So on the debit side, we would write in our details this stale dated check of 42, stale dated. If you want to put our Sims so we know who it was written to, you can. And that was $42. So that comes back into the account. All right. Anything else from the notes that we should be aware of? Oh, so note 2 again. Now we can look at check 719 where we have the adjustment that needs to be made. Let's just recall that the note said that the bank correctly recorded the amount, and the bank recorded that amount as 302, but our cash book has it as 320. So it is overstated in the cash book. So in order to reduce that then, or to bring the money back in, we would have to debit the cash book for the difference. So we're not going to write 302 in our cash book on the credit side. No, we have to update or do the adjustment by using the difference, and we will put the difference on the side for the overstatement. We will put the difference on the debit side in order to reduce the amount. So let's do that one next. So we have here another debit transaction, which is the adjustment. And this would have been for the $18. You can show your working. This is a 320 minus the 302. The 320 is what we had in the cash book. The 302 is what the bank has, and the difference is 18 on our debit side. So we have so far our beginning balance, stale dated check, and the adjustment for $18. Let's see what else. Anything else in the notes that we don't want to miss? We have here, we identify that the non-sufficient funds would go in the cash book, and then that dividend. So this is information already in our bank statement, so we can go back to the bank statement and just work our way down to those ones. So after the adjustment, we have the standing order. This was not in our cash book for November, so we can put this amount of 140 on the credit side of the cash book because we found it on the debit side of the bank statement. Just remember, debits in the bank statement are withdrawals, and withdrawals in your cash book are on the credit side, right? So it's opposite when you look at the cash book and the bank statement. You do the opposite. So that amount for 140 for the standing order, let's update our cash book with that. So we have standing order 140. What else do we have? After the standing order, we have this 150, but that is for our bank reconciliation, which is why we have BR there. So that's probably a bank error. Then we have the non-sufficient funds, which we just saw in the notes. It's on the debit side, so we put it on the credit side of our cash book, $43. So on our credit side, we write NSF 43. And I believe we also just saw service charge, which was 3. Let's double check. There we have it. Service charge in our bank statement on the debit side, $3, and we have that on our credit side. Finally, we have that credit memorandum, which they told us was a dividend, and that will go in our cash book on which side? The debit side, because it's income. So it's on the credit side of the bank statement, and it will go on the debit side of the cash book. So we write that in, dividend for $9.95. Is there anything else that we need to include in our updated cash book? So we just went through our notes covered everything in our notes. We went through our bank statement. We covered everything in our bank statement. Let's just double check our cash book. And we have one thing identified here, which is a discount allowed. And I believe we spoke on this before when we said that discount allowed transactions are not to be reported in the cash book. So this is an error that the accountant or the junior bookkeeper made at the time. So because they debited the cash book with the amount, we would have to reverse it to zero it out. So we would credit that amount. So this is the only reason why we are using information from the cash book in the updated cash book, because the error was made on our end. Okay, so this discount allowed, let us just include that in our updated cash book. This is the reversal to remove it to zero it out. Discount allowed for 25 is credited. So I believe that's it. We have no other items identified in any of the two documents, that is the cash book and the bank statement, or in our notes that we need to include in our cash book. So I guess we can go ahead and start to balance our T account. I can see that the debit side is the heavier side. So let's see what that amount totals. So we have 42 plus 18 plus 995. That gives us 1055. So let's write that in there. 1055, double line it because we are balancing the account. And then on our credit side, we would have our balance carried down. So we'd have to total everything on our credit side and deduct it from the overall total on the debit side. So that would be 184 plus 140 plus 46. 46 is the 43 plus 3 plus 25. That's 395, and we deduct that from the 1055. And our difference is 660. So that's our balance carried down. So we got 1055 here, and our T account is balanced. Now that we have all the information in, we can proceed with the final step, and that would be completing our bank reconciliation. See you in the next video.